So Amanda, this is the first chapter of Blue Thread, which is interviews with Edelman alums.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, well, you were always one of my favorites, I have to admit. So tell me, what did you take from your time at Edelman that you've continued to use at HP?
Oh my God, what didn't I take? I mean, Richard, you know better than anybody, I worked at Edelman 3 whole times. So I learned a lot of things over the course of my tutelage under you and others. I think the biggest thing I learned was the importance of just being an actual human. Edelman was a place where it was really easy for me to do that, but I think that as I grew and sort of grew at the company and became more of a leader, I also learned that it's important to make room for other people to do that as well, so that other people can be unapologetically themselves. So the second thing I think that's important that I learned at Edelman was something I learned from Tish Van Dyke, who was one of the first people that I worked with when I came back. And she used to have this term called the swoop and poop. I don't know if you remember that, but it was a term for senior people who would come into an account or work or a pitch and they dump criticism and then kind of walk away. And what that always left me with was the importance of being in the work, of getting your hands dirty, getting down in the weeds and into the details and really helping to make it better and solve problems.
Absolutely. And what's the big difference between client side and agency side?
Oh my gosh. Well, if you remember when I left to go to HP, I told you that the reason that I wanted to do it was because I wanted to see what it was like. And I wanted to see what it was like to be the person approving the work and fighting for the work, not the person who is making the work. And I would say the biggest thing that I have learned is making work happen is really, really hard. And even great work is really, really hard to make happen. And it's not for the reasons that I think I assumed on the agency side, like budgets or approval or bureaucracy. It's because our business leaders, at least the ones at HP, are thinking about every single dollar that they spend and how that dollar can have the most impact. So we're competing not against other agencies or other PR ideas. We're competing against discounts, rebates, the sales force, travel dollars to get people together for culture building events. Like every single dollar is under scrutiny. I think now knowing that, what I try to work with our Edelman team, because you are still my agency, is how we prove the value of that, how it's going to move the needle, how it's going to change the business, how it's going to position us better as a leader. What I would, tell everybody back at Edelman is become experts on the things that we don't keep track of. Like, what's the competition doing? What are the trends? What are the media saying? What are we not seeing, and what can we learn from externally? That's where we have total blind spots to what's happening outside of the company. And I think that's the real value that Edelman in particular brings to us.
And Amanda, as you've gone into HP, company has a huge commitment to sustainability.
Yeah.
And what have you learned on that, and what have you been able to impact on that?
I think the first thing that I learned was that HP has a really broad sort of sense of what sustainability means. So there's 3 pillars. There's sustainability when you think about climate action. So it's reforestation and using more circularity in the products that we develop and the packaging that they come in. But there's also a huge commitment to human rights. And that is a big part of our supply chain and how we go to market and the countries that we show up in and the countries that we operate in. And then the third piece of it at HP is digital equity. So making sure that everyone everywhere has access to all of the tools and technology that we create and we build, because we think that the next great idea or the next world-changing idea doesn't necessarily come to fruition in a developed market, could happen anywhere. And so the more that we make sure that people have those tools, the better off we'll be.
And as you think forward about HP, I'm really also impressed by what they've done with the AHA, which I think has a lot to do with your own personal history, your mom and whatever else. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So the story on that is my mom died 8 years ago, almost 8 years ago. Actually, it was while I was at Edelman. And she had been sort of like a lifelong hypochondriac. And so she was getting ready to leave on a trip. and she had tightness in her chest, and she did all of the things that you would hope that your mother did. She went to her cardiologist, he did a workup, he did a full examination, and she was sent home with a clean bill of health and was dead 48 hours later. And in the wake of that, you know, I had a lot of feelings, but one of my feelings was this cardiologist must have missed something. Like, how could this have been the case? And what I learned was that actually he didn't miss anything. The truth is, we don't really know what heart events look like in women because all the research is done on men.
How horrible.
Right? It's really soul-crushing if you actually stop to think about it. And so this year, getting to chair Go Red for Women for the Bay Area felt like a good first step to helping to correct that and give something back in honor of my mom. All of the work that I do for the AHA, I do for her in hopes that nobody else will ever have to deal with that again.
Because you know more women die of heart disease
yes,
than men.
Yes, they do. That's
which
true.
Is one of these
That's true.
Shocking statistics. And
yeah.
I'm so proud of the work we've done for 10 years.
I totally agree.
So if you were giving advice to a young Edelman person, the you of a few years ago,
yeah.
what would you tell them?
I think a lot of the most interesting opportunities that I got at Edelman were because somebody talked to me into doing something that maybe initially I didn't think was a good idea. And they weren't all great. Like, I screwed up, I made mistakes, I failed more than my fair share of times, but I learned for every single one of those. And so I think it's just being open to opportunities, and sometimes that means not having an incredibly linear idea of what your career path might look like or what your job might look like, and just being open to seeing what happens.
You've been an incredible friend and partner, and I really hope you come back someday.
Well, let's have a conversation about it, Richard. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored that I got to be the first person to do this with you.
In the blue thread.
I know, in the blue thread. All right.
You're the best.